day 2 of Maker Faire 2013, sitting down with David Lang of OpenROV and Zero to Maker. Welcome, David.
Thanks for having me, and I'm excited to chat with you.
So yesterday we got a chance to interview your co-founder at OpenROV, Eric, and today we wanted to talk to you about your new upcoming book, Zero to Maker. So tell us, what was the origin of this?
Yeah. So this whole thing, the robots and the book Zero to Maker kind of stemmed from an experience I had a couple years ago when I lost my job, and it was really a kind of a scary moment for me where I didn't know what I was going to do and was worried about that I didn't have the right skills. And so I decided that I just wanted to start making things. Like I wanted to reskill myself. I had been to Maker Faire. I'd seen the way that everyone here has such passion about what they're doing and are so excited about what they're making. And I wanted a little piece of that, a taste of that. So I showed up at Tech Shop in San Francisco and started, woodworking and welding, and then got into laser cutting and 3D printing and all that stuff. And meanwhile, I'd met Eric, and Eric told me this wonderful story about this underwater cave, and I don't know if he told you that yesterday, but this underwater robot that he wanted to build. And I said, man, that sounds so cool. You got to let me tag along. And, here we are, like 18 months, 2 years later, and we've raised $100,000 on Kickstarter. We've shipped these robots all over the world, and we're building this open source community of DIY ocean explorers. So it's been a big transition, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's pretty cool. So now, where did you grow up?
So I'm from Minnesota.
Okay.
And I've lived in the Bay Area for about 5 years. I managed a sailing school for most of that. So I've been on the water and really fallen in love with the ocean.
Cool. So now, do you remember, how old were you when you started making stuff?
I guess you're always kind of making stuff as a kid, right? You're making forts and you're out, playing in the woods and doing different things. But I never saw myself as really technical. I've studied business in college and never really saw myself as a maker. I didn't self-identify as one. It wasn't until I decided that I wanted to get back into this, kind of start this Zero to Maker journey, that I realized that, everybody's a beginner here. I mean, that's kind of what's going on, is we're all exploring what's possible. And so, the self-identifying as a maker is something that's relatively new, I would say, in the past year and a half.
Cool. So what did your parents say when you lost your job and you said, hey, I want to reskill myself and go to the tech shop and do this thing? What was their reaction?
Yeah, so my parents have always thought that I was crazy. So I moved out to California after college and told them that I wanted to sail around the world. Yeah. And I'd never been on a sailboat before. So, they ever since then, they've just written me off as whatever he's going to do. And so when I told them I wanted to start making things, I think they were a little surprised. They hadn't been to Maker Faire. They hadn't seen what was happening with the maker movement. So they were surprised, but last year in October, they came to New York and got a chance to see the World Maker Faire, and they got it. They instantly got it, and it's been very cool. I've been 3D printing with my mom and prototyping projects with her, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, it really goes to show you that anybody can get involved with this. That's
cool. So now, so you got the book coming out. Tell us a little bit just about the genesis of the thinking behind, how is this book going to be different than some of the other books out there?
Yeah, so I have been writing since I decided to make this transition. So this was actually how I got into this. I guessed the email address of the Tech Shop people and told me Make was going to let me write about it. And I guessed the email address of Make and told me Tech Shop was going to let me take classes. So I got started writing. And that was actually really important, because what I found is that having to write about my experiences, it kind of made me think more about what I was learning. And I had all these lessons and all these great people that I had met, and I realized that if I put that together in the right way, it could be a kind of a lonely planet for the maker world, and a really good guide to get people up to speed quickly. So it's not, Chris Anderson's book is wonderful, Makers, about describing this whole makers movement and where it fits into kind of the context of manufacturing and globalization and things. That's not what this book is. This is a book about you as an individual. How do you get up to speed really quickly so you can, make that project that you always dreamed of, or quit your job and start an underwater robot business.
Cool. So now that you have access to the tech shop, you're in the middle of writing this book, you basically have all these tools at your disposal. What's your favorite tool to work with?
The laser cutter is still my favorite tool. It was one of the first 5 classes I took at Tech Shop, and I was blown away by how simple it was to use, and I'm continually impressed with the ways I see people using it. So there's so many creative ways to put 2D shapes together, to create 3D models, to stack them, to join them together. I think the laser, I always, suggest that people, if they're just getting into this, if they're just going to a makerspace, try using the laser cutter, because there's a really quick positive feedback loop of actual making right away.
Cool. So now, as we look to 2013, so this is Maker Faire 2013.
Right.
So we look to Maker Faire 2014. What are we going to expect from David Lang?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we have a lot of really exciting things that we're planning with OpenROV. I mean, we have this community of thousands of people all over the world, and it's just, we're having so much fun. So we'll see a lot more innovation there. I mean, our robots even are 5 times better than they were 2 months ago. So it's just improving really rapidly. But more importantly, with the book Zero to Maker, my goal, my wildest dream was really to have 1,000 new makers.
Okay.
Starting new projects. So I mean, for me, my biggest hope is that there's 500 new people here who didn't have projects at Maker Faire last year that have just started a new, open source project or have started prototyping something. That's what's really exciting to me, is more people getting involved.
Cool. So last question.
Yeah.
And you especially, since your book is called Zero to Makers, what words of advice do you have for young makers just starting out? Maybe this is their first project or first introduction to making things. Right. What's the summary of your book? Like, what advice do you have for them?
Sure. I was at the Open Hardware Summit a few years ago. It was one of the first Maker Fairs I went to, and the whole Arduino team was standing on stage. And their advice, after their presentation, they said, don't let not knowing what you're doing stop you from getting started. You don't have to know all of this. You just have to have this curiosity, this excitement about getting involved. And the curiosity is really the only thing you need. And you just have to learn enough to be dangerous. And there's really so much you can do.
Cool. You heard it here first from David Lang. Don't let not knowing what you're doing stop you from getting started. We'll see you next time.